Your brain isn't on your side in conversations, and the reason you're still stuck is a byproduct of that fact. My name is Pranav, I'm 18 years old, and over the past year, I've spoken to over 600 people with the sole intention of getting better at talking to them. And when I first started speaking to people, this was one of the biggest initial hurdles that I had to get over, where I had anxiety, I had fears around what would happen if I went up and spoke to people, about weird, unrational beliefs from having a lack of experience of speaking to people. My brain would use those things and put them at the forefront of my mind whenever I thought about going up to that random stranger on the street and just speaking to them. Because the goal it had was holding me back, to blow things up to the worst case scenario, to make myself be comfortable right where I was, to prevent myself from taking action and going through the short term pain, when in the long term I would have no regrets about doing so. I don't regret talking to people and getting better at it, but when I first started, looking back, all I could think about was how hard it would be, how much effort it would take, what pain and what struggle I would have to go through in order to even get over the first obstacle of opening my mouth and facing that fear. Yet in hindsight, the more I did it, the more I faced those fears in spite of what my brain was telling me, I quickly realized like my fears weren't that bad. That everything my brain was telling me really was the worst case scenario, yet beyond any reasonable occurrence that could have happened. It wasn't realistic. There was no reason to really listen to my brain because that was the thing that had kept me stuck for so long. And before that, I had listened to it. I had consumed content around how to get better at talking to people. I read books, I watched videos, all following what my brain was telling me that I needed to learn more, that I needed more information, that I need to keep consuming so I could get to that point where I'd finally be ready to take action and face my fears. When in reality, that's what you're doing right now, most likely, where you're watching this video looking for another reason, another excuse for why you need more information, why you need to learn another thing to take action. When in reality, it's extremely simple. If you want to get better at talking to people, the thing that you do is you go out and you talk to people. You gain direct experience by opening your mouth and conversing with another person. But your brain doesn't like doing this because, one, it's wired to go with the path of least resistance, and two, it goes against your identity. What I mean by this is, when I say least resistance and identity, going up and talking to people, facing your fear and overcoming that pain in the short term, you're taking actions to change your identity from, say, being an anxious introvert to a confident, articulate guy. And going through that process, there's going to be a pain period, a period where your brain tells you every possible lie, every possible excuse to rationalize not going through with that change. Because even if you don't like where you are at right now, it's easy to stay there. It's easy to just live out that life, even if you're not happy with it, even if you're dissatisfied or hate it, because your brain doesn't want to go through the effort of changing. It doesn't want to go through the effort of that pain. It can only think in the short term rather than being focused about where you could be or who you could be later down the line. And so, listening to that voice, following what it tells you to, no, just leave it off till later, read a little bit more, learn a bit more, take all these little steps, avoiding the one thing that you really need to do, which is talking to people, you're going to stay stuck because you're following a never ending loop that's going to keep you trapped. Your brain wants you to conform, it wants you to be like everybody else. And that may include just living with your beliefs, not talking to other people, not exposing yourself, and instead repressing who you are, your identity, your individuality, and just keeping yourself stuck in this loop for as long as it may take for you to realize that the more you keep doing it, the more you keep following what your brain tells you, the less things are going to change, and the more regret you're going to have later down the line, realizing I could have done things differently. I could have made different choices. I wish I had done so. That's the path that you want to avoid. Because, for example, let's talk about initiation. You're going to go up, and this is a fear that you currently have, going up and even opening your mouth to initiate a conversation with someone. When you see somebody you want to talk to, what's the first thing that goes through your mind? Is it, wow, I'm really going to go up and talk to that person. It's going to be so awesome. Probably not. It's probably, damn, I got to speak to that person. They look like they're busy. They look like they're probably not in a talking mood. I probably shouldn't talk to them right now. I'll talk to somebody else. And then you brush it off and you avoid it. That's your brain in action telling you a fear, a rationalization to not take action. And it's overthinking about this. There's a huge hard fear that's related with this. But for what? Yeah, you're conforming. You're conforming to this idea that you shouldn't do it. There's something weird with taking action and speaking to someone. There's obviously a fear there for some reason. But why? What is so bad about it in the first place? Because realistically, you open your mouth, they hear you, you guys have a short conversation, and then you go your separate ways. That's realistically what would happen. But your fear blows it up to the worst case scenario. It doesn't want you to talk to that person because it would be going against your identity. So the path of least resistance is to just not speak to that person in the first place, and you conform to what you think other people should do around you. Where most people aren't going on the bus or on the train or even in classes, most people are not speaking to each other. Most people are content with just being silent, not being social. And I don't know about other places, but I live on the western side of the world, right? In like Canada. Most people, even if they're in a bus, for example, where in the morning it's packed to the brim with people going to school, to work, wherever. And people are sitting shoulder to shoulder. People are standing on like the bus, holding whatever handle there is. And they're brushing shoulders. They're super close. It would be easy to open your mouth and say hello. Nobody speaks to each other. Nobody gets off their phone. Nobody takes the effort of just opening their mouth to even say a single word. Because there's that little sense of pressure. The idea that if nobody else is doing it, I shouldn't do it either. And realistically, most people are not improving their conversations. Most people would die to have somebody speak to them. They would love it. But they aren't willing to take the steps to initiate a conversation, to talk to another person, to put themselves out there. And that's where this conformity piece comes in. There's conditioning of thinking that talking to random people, talking to strangers, or facing your fears, it's not something you should do. Instead, you should be like everybody else. But do you want that for yourself? Assuming you've watched this far, is that what you want for your life? Is that what you want for your confidence, your social skills, of staying stuck because you just thought about what everybody else would think of you? Most people are not doing these sort of things. Most people are not improving their conversations. Instead, they're listening to their brains and keeping quiet. That is what you want to avoid. You want to go against the grain about what your brain is telling you, because fear is a signal. Fear is a sign of the things that you need to be doing, but you're terrified of doing so. Just like how your body experiences pain after a workout, telling you that you worked hard, your body is sore, you tore muscle fibers. Now you should rest and recover. The same thing goes with the pain of talking to people and facing your fear, that it's a signal that your mind is telling you, oh, you're afraid of speaking to that person. That's probably what you should be doing right now, because if you don't face that fear, it's only going to intensify and become worse over time. And this is where the mindset, the beliefs that your brain has come into play, where we're used to seeing as fear as something that's going to be avoided, something that shouldn't be taken action on, something to back away from. When in reality, the brain can give you the same signal of fear, and another person will move towards it, will face that fear for the sake of the fear, of overcoming that fear and mastering it in a sense. That's what conversations are about when you're first starting out. Not about being perfect, not about being focused on all of these things, all of these unrelated vague little tips about what you need to do, how you need to act, how to smile, and how to talk to the other person. They're important and they have their place, but at the very beginning, the most important part is to take action on facing the fear. Take it from somebody who knows what he's talking about. I had to do the same thing. I had to start by just going up to people at bus stops when I'm going to track practice and opening my mouth to say hello to them. A lot of times I was shitting bricks. A lot of times I was afraid and I really didn't want to do it. Where I'd see maybe a girl sitting on the bench and I'd think, bro, do I really want to talk to her? What if things go badly? What if I have to continue the conversation? What if things get awkward? All these what ifs about what could happen. I had to train my brain to just do it anyways, to listen to those voices, to acknowledge them, but to not follow them, to take action in spite of them, to realize that signal that my brain was giving me was a test to see, can I overcome those voices and can I take action regardless? And the way I did this was I started talking to 2 people every single day. I started giving myself a baseline, something that could be easy, something that could be doable every single day, that I could consistently execute on. And once I spoke to those 2 people, I'd faced my fear quota for the day. And over time, as I got better at it, I started ramping it up slowly but surely, and the fear started to disappear as well. Because if you go headfirst into that fear, you quickly realize it wasn't as bad as you thought it was. It was overblown in your mind. It was a big imaginary fantasy of what the worst case scenario would be. Like I said, your brain wants to conjure up the worst case scenario, wants to take the path of least resistance, wants to keep your identity safe, it wants to keep you conforming to what you think everybody else is doing around you. Don't. Your brain is not on your side, but you can make it a signal for the path that you need to take. And let me ask you one last question. If you had a list of every single fear within your mind, and you took action and overcame every single one of those fears, where would you be right now? Who would you be? And is that something that you see yourself wanting to become? Is that the sort of person that you want to be? Because a lot of those fears are overblown. A lot of that stuff that you're afraid of is actionable, whether it be going up and speaking to someone, initiating the first conversation, taking action and just working in spite of what your brain is telling you. That life is within reach. You just gotta make the choices and take the action to seize it. And the fact is, I was able to do it. My life is not perfect. I still have fears. But I was able to take that first step. And afterwards, each step becomes subsequently easier to take. So if anything, take action. Write down your fears, realize what you're afraid of, and use it as a signal to take action on those specific things. Because that's all you can really do to get started. But besides that, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, check out the other videos on my channel, specifically about talking to people. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.